Tonight, the so-called zombie drug ravaging communities across West Africa. It's called Kush. Some batches are 25 times deadlier than fentanyl, and it's killed thousands of people since it was first discovered.
This drug is evil. This drug is bad. Some are dying. Some have sores on their feet. We don't know. This drug brings destruction.
Tonight, we'll reveal how a global synthetic drugs network is flooding the continent using ingredients shipped in from China and the UK. Also coming up, our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn will be live in the Iranian capital. Today, a senior Iranian official told him there's still a chance for peace talks with the US. He witnessed the impact of Israel's attacks on ordinary people in Tehran, with many terrified the bombing campaign will resume. Also ahead, tributes at Anfield and across Europe after Liverpool footballer Diogo Jota was killed in a car crash. And the Russian soldiers fleeing the battlefield for refuge in Europe. I'll speak live to the man masterminding their escape. That's all coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. We begin the programme tonight under a bridge in Freetown, the capital of Sierra Leone. It's home to a community of addicts, teenagers with empty eyes and open sores slumped over as they stand. Mothers who smoked while pregnant, now with babies covered in rashes. They are all addicts of a new drug called Kush. It's highly addictive and affordable. Tests show some batches contain nitazines, one of the deadliest man-made drugs in the world. Researchers say its components are being imported to West Africa from countries across Asia and Europe. That includes the UK. We'll discuss the global trade in synthetic drugs in a moment, but first, our Africa correspondent Yusra El-Bagir has this special report.
It's a temporary escape with a brutal come down. Kush looks like marijuana, but can be 25 times stronger than fentanyl, making zombies out of men and women in Sierra Leone. This synthetic drug is creating an underworld in plain sight and rapidly spreading across West Africa.
Kush is such an issue here that there's even a drug den under this main road.
We're suffering, but all the thing we tell you now, we need help. All is it, we need help. We need help. Look at my condition.
The conditions of the people here are as haunting as their home, a den of deprivation and disease.
There's this shared sense of pain and entrapment, and everyone coming in and out is connected through their addiction to Kush. And they've all told us that they want to quit, but as long as they stay here, they'll never break free.
Elizabeth is 24 years old and pregnant with her second child, but can't bring herself to give up Kush as long as she stays here.
Elizabeth, does it feel like a risk to smoke Kush while you're pregnant? Why are you taking the risk?
I keep smoking it because it makes me forget about my worries and challenges.
The numbness of the high has worn off, and she can't hold back her pain. These are not the fringes of Freetown, but a place for people of all ages, caught in the clutches of Kush.
This drug is evil. This drug is bad. I don't know why they gave me this drug in this country. Our brothers are suffering. Some are dying. Some have sores on their feet. We don't know. This drug brings destruction. Look at me. Just because of this drug, I have sores on my feet.
There's a shelter among shacks for teenagers like Ibrahim, whose Kush-induced sores have eaten away at their limbs. Some are paralyzed by infection and malnutrition, lying in corners where others have died before. The rest are debilitated.
Does it hurt?
Abu Bakr is only 14 years old.
and was handed his first Kush joint at 12. He's been fighting for his life ever since. When was the last time you walked?
Long time.
Their limbs are literally ravaged by this. They've got these huge open sores that they have to keep washing with disinfectant. They can't even walk, and yet they're still scrambling to get cash to buy more Kush to smoke. Are they still smoking Kush?
Yeah, upset they still the smoke.
Even with all this pain?
All this pain wouldn't get out, and still the smoke.
It's a prison with an open door. The drug is destroying everything they need to survive. But where is Kush coming from? This container has come from a high-risk import country to Freetown's port. Shipments from the UK, EU, and South America need to be searched for Kush ingredients.
To be Kush.
And this one fits the bill.
The initial testing shows that there are Kush items as well as acetone, which are also used in the processing of Kush.
And where have they been shipped from?
They've been shipped from the United Kingdom.
The UK is part of a transnational drug trade feeding Sierra Leone's growing crisis, destroying families, eroding communities, and spreading across the region. Through 3 different borders to Africa's smallest nation. It's quite a sleepy border, but Kush has been seized here before, and it passed through 4 countries to get here from Sierra Leone. They're searching the cars of young men for traces of Kush or other drugs being smuggled in. It's a necessary but futile exercise. The border is so porous that the official checkpoint can be avoided.
There is no boundary. So there's no demarcation of anything. You can come from the Gambian side, you can enter. You can come from the Senegalese side, you can enter.
The threat of Kush tearing through Gambia's tiny population has law enforcement taking a zero-tolerance stance. We're on a drugs patrol with police hunting dealers in Gambia's biggest city. This is one of the weapons deployed in the war against Kush, but it hasn't gotten rid of it. It's just driven it deeper underground. They're just stopping someone now. They've caught a dealer, but not of Kush.
This is cannabis skunk. 5 small bags.
The searches are thorough, with any amount of drug possession warranting arrest. These raids have become a regular feature of Gambian nightlife, with more and more seizures of cannabis and amphetamines than Kush. It's an average drug bust of small-time players, confirming reports that deadly Kush dealers are operating out of sight.
Here's the Kush we are having here.
We've been told that Kush is still happening, still being sold, but is not being done in the open.
It may be, yes, because it's a product that is with high price.
Do you think that you will manage the Kush problem here, that you can get on top of it?
Yes, I think so, simply because we don't take it as individual problem, we take it as a national issue. Everybody's involved.
It's a national issue with few long-term solutions. And in the country's busiest market, we met a Sierra Leonean who spent a year in a Gambian prison for dealing Kush and feels little remorse.
Feel guilty for selling it? No, I don't feel guilty.
Why not?
Because I'm not using my money to get the Kush. People always give me money to get the Kush for them.
You couldn't have said no?
No. I needed the job, so it's like...
Young men are seen as prime suspects in the Kush trade, but some of them are working to stop the spread and prove that it's possible to quit.
I was at my brother's shop, and then I went to smoke Kush. After smoking, I felt my tongue was choking me. People had to come and hold my tongue, then take me to hospital.
How did you help Aziz stop smoking?
It is very hard. It is not just your advice that will make the person to stop using the drug. It is your advice and he or she being ready to accept to stop using the drug. That's the only way.
Back in Sierra Leone's capital, a police officer chases a kid caught selling Kush. He's disappeared, so his father is arrested instead, as Kush smokers from under the bridge come up to watch. The action passes and they settle back into their rhythm, a dulling of the senses to soften their rapid deterioration, the daily drum of this devastating drug. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News, Sierra Leone.
And Yusra's here with me live. We'll be speaking to her in a moment about what she witnessed in Sierra Leone and Gambia. There are no official figures into deaths caused by Kush. Research suggests that numbers is likely to be in the thousands, and even more worrying is the fact that the drug contains nitazines. They are a highly addictive and deadly synthetic opioid similar to fentanyl, which are then mixed with a man-made substance that mimics the effects of cannabis. Kush first emerged in Sierra Leone 3 years ago, but quickly spread across borders into Liberia, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau and Senegal. Researchers believe substances used to make the drug are being imported from China, the Netherlands and potentially the UK. Well, as I said, Yusra is here with me in the studio, and joining us also is Lucia Bird. She's the co-author of a new report for the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime, which was produced alongside the international think tank, the Clinadale Institute. Thank you so much, Lucia and Yusra, for joining me here on the programme. Lucia, I'm going to just come to you because I want to discuss a little bit more your findings, the findings of your report, because it sort of points to the fact that this particular drug, Kush, is 25 times stronger than fentanyl.
So it's important to recognise that Kush is the street name for this synthetic drug, which, as you highlighted, has synthetic cannabinoids and nitazines. We identified 3 different nitazines in the Kush in Sierra Leone. And indeed, one of the nitazines is more or less 25 times stronger than fentanyl. So this is extremely potent. The risk of overdose is very, very high. And the fact that there are nitazines in Kush really show that Kush is not a West African problem. Nitazines are a really important part of a global synthetic drugs problem.
So, talk us through that, because one of the other things that your report has found is its links to Europe, the UK.
Yes, so we don't believe that the active components in Kush, those nitazine synthetic cannabinoids, are manufactured in West Africa. We believe that they are manufactured overseas and that then they are imported using postal courier services or maritime routes. Most of the nitazines in Europe are believed to be manufactured in and exported from China. And similarly, our research that included interviews in Sierra Leone with importers of Kush, with Kush cooks, as well as with individuals working at the maritime port, also indicated that China was one of the countries from which Kush components was being exported. But our interviews and seizure data also highlighted the export of some components from the UK and the Netherlands. But it's important to emphasize at this stage, it's difficult to differentiate the nitazine and synthetic cannabinoid supply chains, and we need further research into that.
Well, let me bring in Yusra. Yusra, extraordinary report there, again, on sort of the way in which this has shaken parts of West Africa. And it's so visceral when you see it, not just, on the fringes of society and people who perhaps were living under this bridge, but as we saw in your report, pregnant women, children. I mean, it's impacting all aspects of society now.
Absolutely. I mean, this drug emerged in 2022, and it was reported on as an issue, but we went back because we could feel and see that this is now becoming a regional crisis, that it was destabilizing this part of West Africa. When we arrived, we were aware that it had these components and were aware of the potency of the nitazines, but seeing it in person, people slumped over, drooling, completely incapacitated, unable to escape the clutches of the drug. That's when all the facts and figures really hit home. And everyone told us, we want to stop. We know this drug is destroying our lives, but the nature of it, how addictive it is. I mean, just one joint can have a 17-year-old, like Ibrahim in our report, trapped forever. And he was under that bridge,
while his family home was nearby, and he had to leave his parents and now lives in a drug den under a main road, just from that one moment that someone handed him a Kush joint.
Tell me whether, there was something or someone as you were reporting that's really stayed with you, because it is quite a visual thing as well when you talk about the sores, the open wounds as well.
So we went from under the bridge. We saw sores on Ibrahim's foot, and he was saying, my brothers, they have sores on their feet. We don't know why. And we asked about the sores, and Sophie, our producer, was asking whether there was a place where these sores were being treated. And we were taken to the shelter in the report, and we're just completely taken aback. I mean, we had to blur those images for our viewers from how graphic they are, like oozing wounds. A 14-year-old who doesn't know if he'll walk again because he started smoking Kush when he was 12. And, we kind of took it in. And then as we started to make sense of it, our cameraman, Garwin, went inside to film from another angle. And he just calls me and Yusra, you have to see this. I walk in and there's a narrow corridor with these stalls, almost like shower stalls. And there's this 18-year-old, completely emaciated, shallow breathing, on the verge of death, malnourished, exhaling that he needs food to survive. And that is how people end up dying from Kush: organ failure, malnutrition, infection. Once we stood in that corridor, I think it was very clear to us that people had died in this place before. And when we asked Daniel, the man who runs the shelter, how many people have died here, he kind of hesitated and said 3. And we knew that was at least 3. And it kind of dawned on us, the scale. We don't have any death tolls, we don't have numbers about how many people have died, but it's suspected to be in the thousands. And when you think of how it's cutting through gender, age, this is such a huge chunk of society in Sierra Leone and in other countries. Going to the Gambia and realizing that's Africa's smallest nation dealing with something so dangerous. It's so serious. And those images, I think, really bring that home.
Yeah, and Lucia, I'm just going to bring you back in. Just listening there to Yusra, given, the scale of this and as Yusra was saying, we're not sure of the exact death toll, but are the authorities now waking up to this and trying to crack down?
The authorities in Sierra Leone, as well as in neighbouring countries, have been taking a number of initiatives to try and respond to this. They've created task forces, they've made efforts to increase treatment support, public health initiatives, as well as to tackle the criminal market. But it's not enough. And it's important to emphasise that it's really hard to respond to these types of synthetic drugs markets because you need a very small amount of the core chemical to produce a huge amount of the drug on the street that is then causing enormous harms. So the response does have to be coordinated right across the supply chain to try and crack down on the manufacture, the trafficking, the imports, as well as then to try and enhance support to people that are using Kush and want help and need help, and making sure that the public health support available is based on the evidence of what Kush is and is the kind of public health response that respects human rights.
And Yusra, do you feel from being on the ground that that they're able to even sort of try and crack down? I mean, as Lucia was saying, they're trying, but it seems like a massive supply chain.
You do get the sense that they don't know where to start at this point or how to approach it because of the scale of the spread. They said to us very clearly that they want help from surrounding countries, but also from countries like the UK and the Netherlands, where ingredients have come in that they've seized. They don't have the resources to deal with this. And when you think of how quickly it's spreading and how addictive it is and how far it's evolving in such a short period of time to what is now one of the most dangerous synthetic drugs in the world, I think they feel a sense of paralysis. This has changed in such an extreme way so quickly that they feel like they may not be able to handle it appropriately without help from a country like the UK.
Yusra, Lucia, thank you both for joining us here on the programme. Now, for all of Donald Trump's talk of obliterating Iran's nuclear sites, the path towards diplomacy between Iran and the United States would seem like a way off. But tonight, a potential olive branch. Iran's foreign ministry has told Sky News there is still a chance for peace talks with the United States. A senior Iranian official said despite the recent conflict with the US and Israel, back-channel efforts are underway to restart the search for a diplomatic solution. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn sent this report from Tehran.
A residential building in a civilian area, but still on Israel's target list. Hit by an airstrike like so many across Tehran. Israelis may have been trying to kill a nuclear scientist here, it's not clear. But there's no doubt about the extent of the damage they did.
The Israelis talk about precision targeting a lot, but this is the reality of their airstrikes. This missile has come in here and devastated this floor, but the floors above and below, and right over there, a couple of buildings away, it's blasted in the windows and ripped off the cladding. As you can see, the explosion has just torn a hole right the way through the floor here and the floors below, down to the ground floor. An engineer we've spoken to just now says the entire structure will probably have to be torn down and built again.
Residents wouldn't talk on camera, but told us they were devastated at the loss of their homes. Over the street, they're replacing the windows and counting themselves lucky they weren't here when the airstrike came in.
If she had been here, which she is most of the time, even with her child, I think the damage wouldn't have been replaceable.
She would have been very badly hurt.
Yeah, and it's really scary.
The Iranian government has released this footage it says is of another airstrike. Cars lifted in the air in scenes from a disaster movie. Iran is reeling from all this, wary of what comes next.
People are very much outraged about what happened.
And letting in very few journalists.
Less than a year-old boy.
At the Foreign Ministry, they showed us pictures of Israel's civilian victims, dead women and children. And its spokesman condemned Israel and America for their deaths.
You Londoners or you Brits, you have your own blitz. And I think what happened for 12 long days was a kind of unprovoked surprise aggression against Iranians. They killed many Iranians. Close to 1,000 people lost their lives in this vicious act of war that was imposed on our nation.
Despite that, though, he revealed Iran is exploring the possibility of talking to America again.
I know there are contacts indirectly. My minister is talking to Oman, Qatar, and others. So, as I said, diplomacy never ends.
The Iranian government is immortalising this war already and staying defiant in public, but preparing to talk to one of its two enemies and salvage what it can from this crisis.
And Dominic joins us live now from Tehran. And Dom, you were just saying there in your report how difficult it is for international journalists to enter the country. Just talk us through what the mood is now like in Tehran.
Yeah, well, I think the mood really is one, the sense of a nation really reeling in shock from what it's been through and unsure about itself and unsure about the future. Wary about letting in journalists, not letting many of us in at all. So unsure that it's keeping much of its airspace closed. So to get here, you have to fly into one of two airports right in the far east of the country. When you go into land, you see a lot of civilian airliners lined up on the tarmac because they're trying to keep much of their civilian fleet out of harm's way because they're worried about the Israelis coming back and attacking them again. And then it's a 15, 16-hour drive from Mashhad in the east to here, Tehran, in the capital of the city. And the mood here is subdued and it's uncertain. So, and that plays out at different levels of Iranian society. So at an official level, in terms of what the government's doing, it's kind of doing a couple of things. On the one hand, it is trying to project defiance. It is suspending cooperation with the IAEA, the UN nuclear watchdog. On the other hand, though, it's revealed to us at the Foreign Ministry today that it is exploring the possibility of talks with the Americans, which you might think is extraordinary given what the Americans and the Israelis have done to the Iranians. But the reason behind that, I think, is they are just desperate to diffuse this crisis that is causing them so much damage. But I think more broadly speaking, what it means for Iranians generally is still a similar sense of sort of subdued shock, but also they are conflicted. On the one hand, they've seen foreign aggressives, the Zionists, as they call the Israelis and the Americans, civilians, attacking them in ways they never thought would happen, unprecedented attacks across the country. But on the other hand, many of them don't have much sympathy or support for the government anymore because of the way it's brutally suppressed social unrest here, protests, the way it's chronically mismanaged the economy here. So one person I spoke to near that building that we saw attacked by the Israelis, I said to them, how do you feel about the Israelis? Does this make you angry? And they said, well, I have mixed emotions, really. I just hope that things work out best for the country. So not prepared to condemn the Israelis, presumably because of that sort of conflict of how they feel about the government in general. So you kind of wonder where this is going to end. I think two things we can say for sure. As long as the Iranians remain defiant over their nuclear program, the Iranians remain defiant over the nuclear program, the Israelis are going to come after them again and attack them. So we could see a kind of rumbling war as the Israelis try and keep down this threat from what they perceive to be this threat from the Iranians, not just the nuclear threat, but the ballistic missiles threat as well. And the Iranian government kind of said that, the Israeli government said that yesterday. But I think also there are big questions about what this means for the government of Iran. It is seen as sort of discredited, I think, not just because of the social unrest, but also the way it's handled this crisis, because it's failed to defend the Iranians over the last few weeks. What that means is unclear. It could lead to a sort of evolution of change within the government, sort of reform or something more dramatic. We simply don't know. But I think it's fair to say that things can't really go on as they have been for too much longer. Something has to give here.
And just very briefly, Dom, we saw those extraordinary images of the residents of Tehran fleeing, leaving the city when the bombardment started, and Donald Trump tweeted or put on Truth Social and told them to leave. Are people starting to return and resume normal life, or are they still terrified that this could ultimately turn into some kind of war of attrition?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the good things about what's happened is the traffic is a lot bad than it was when we were here last in January, and that's because a lot of people haven't returned here. Another difference is there isn't that sense of bravado that we heard from the government back then, where they said they wouldn't even think about the Israelis attacking them because it would be so mad. Well, that has now happened. So the unthinkable has happened, and I think for ordinary Iranians that does mean they have to sort of reevaluate their safety, their security, what they think of the government, but also I think, as you say, there is this fear of a war of attrition. The Israelis have shown that their whole calculus has shifted, and if they feel there's a threat from the Iranians, they'll come back and attack them again. And I think for a lot of Iranians, that's frankly terrifying because of all the Israelis have said about targeted, precisioned attacks. As we've seen today in just one building, one attack causes so much damage, death and potential injury, and turns the lives upside down for so many people. And that's played out across Tehran, other cities as well. So the possibility of this conflict continuing, these attacks continuing from the Israelis, possibly with American backing, is really worrying for the Iranians.
Dom, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there from Tehran. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, more outrage in Gaza as Israeli airstrikes kill 95 people, some of them waiting at designated aid sites. And tributes continue to the Liverpool star Diogo Jota, who's died in a car crash just 2 weeks after his wedding.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Welcome back. It's become a daily occurrence in Gaza now. Tiny bodies in body bags, mourning families, smouldering rubble. Today is no different. The Gaza Health Ministry says 95 people were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight and this morning. 5 of them were reportedly killed while outside sites associated with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. That's a newly created American aid organization backed by Israel to feed Gaza's population. Israel has issued new guidance and admitted that civilians are being harmed close to the distribution centres. That's backed up Sky News' own analysis. We'll have more on that in a moment. But first, have a look at this. It used to be a makeshift shelter in Gaza City. Entire families were burnt alive here as they slept, taking the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza since October the 7th, 2023, past 57,000. Well, coming up, international correspondent John Sparks will join me to talk about why so many people are dying trying to feed their families. But first, Alex Rossi sent this report from Jerusalem.
As ceasefire negotiations show signs of progress, Israel's military campaign in Gaza, condemned by critics as genocide, continues to intensify. This was once a school. It became a refuge for families fleeing the bombardment until it was targeted in the middle of the night. Those sheltering here were asleep when it was struck.
We were sleeping when suddenly I heard a blast, a chain of explosions. I got up and saw fire everywhere, and people pulling out the burned bodies of children.
Among the dead, a father and his child. They lie in death side by side. The image is too graphic to show. At least 15 people were killed here. In Gaza, there is nowhere safe to turn.
Our situation is clear, as you can see here. I was staying in that classroom at first. It was struck and collapsed on me and my children. Now we're here, and the classroom upstairs has been hit again. The same scenario. I don't even know what to say anymore.
And the outcry over Israel's military campaign is growing. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territories is calling for international sanctions.
If 60,000 people killed do not push us to taking seriously international obligations, then we're really beyond the pale. This is not a war. This is a genocidal campaign.
The Israeli government strongly rejects that allegation. It claims its military operations target Hamas, not the Palestinian population as a whole. But for the people caught in Gaza, that does not reflect their reality. Even reaching food, water, or medical aid means taking a deadly risk. And while there's now talk of ceasefire breakthroughs, on the ground, survival is the only goal. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Jerusalem.
So with hundreds of charities calling for the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation to be shut down, are more people in Gaza really being killed around designated aid sites? New data analysed by Sky News has revealed a sharp rise in civilian deaths since the start of the GHF began aid distribution from the GHF. Our data and forensics correspondent Tom Cheshire has this analysis.
The aid points run by Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, are controversial. Critics call them death traps. The IDF says it is examining reports of civilians being harmed, and GHF itself says there have been no incidents or fatalities at or near its sites, and that this is all Hamas disinformation. So we've got incidents, reports, disinformation. But we have found a clear pattern in the data that shows that Palestinian deaths increase when GHF sites are open. This is what we're talking about. This footage is of an incident near the Netzarim corridor. Shows people taking cover from gunfire in the middle of Gaza last week. We've geolocated the instance near a GHF site over here, and we've done the same for multiple other incidents where fatalities were reported. As of July the 2nd, the Gaza Health Ministry, run by Hamas, has said that 600 people have been killed. Israel and GHF say that this is disinformation, claiming that no one has died at these aid sites. But we've analysed the reports of deaths and injuries on the days that the aid sites have been open, and we found that deaths and injuries in Gaza are higher on days when more of the GHF aid sites are operational. In other words, when more sites are open, more people die. You can see that here. On days when the GHF conducts just 2 distributions or fewer, health officials report an average of 48 deaths in red and 189 injuries in yellow. But if we look at days with 5 or 6 GHF distributions, authorities have reported almost 3 times as many casualties as this chart over here. We also found that, on average, 30% of aid distributions have ended in violence. Between the 8th of June and the 1st of July, there were 77 distributions across GHF's 4 sites. You can see those marks over here, SDS's secure distribution sites. Now, 23 of those distributions, at least, there were reports of fatal shootings. That gives us that average of 30%. We've also spoken to eyewitnesses, including Huda Abu Salim.
All along the way, you're hiding. You hide here, then run, then hide again. At any moment, they might shoot you. You might make it back, or you might not. I witnessed death firsthand. Bodies lay bleeding on the ground all around me. This is not right. Food should be delivered to UN warehouses, and this entire operation must be shut down.
We asked the IDF for comment, and this is what they said. The IDF did not instruct the forces to deliberately shoot at civilians, including those approaching distribution centres. To be clear, IDF directives prohibit deliberate attacks on civilians. They also added, in light of reports of incidents of harm to the civilians approaching the distribution centres, the incidents are being examined by the relevant IDF authorities, and further action will be taken as necessary. Recently, over 200 NGOs have signed a letter calling for immediate action to end the GHF scheme, which they say is led by Israel, and to go back to the existing UN-led coordination mechanisms.
Tom Cheshire reporting there. Well, let's bring in our international correspondent, John Sparks. And John, right from the outset, this whole humanitarian foundation has been sort of gripped with controversy. Their director quit before they'd even started, saying they're not following international law. Just talk us through the actual foundation.
Look, they've been put together by a couple of US private contractors. But I think what is key here is that Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is not a humanitarian organisation. It is not fulfilling humanitarian functions. The amount of aid they are distributing in Gaza is totally inadequate. So says more than 200 international NGOs that we just heard from Tom Cheshire about. If you look at what they're actually putting in one of their food boxes that is left in the hubs for people to pick up, you're talking about some carbohydrates, not much else. Flour, pasta, maybe some cooking oil, maybe a couple of tins of tuna. It's not enough to meet people's basic nutritional requirements. It doesn't mean that some of those items don't have value. And what I've learned from my conversations with aid officials is that gang members, traders, merchants, they're sending in muscle, men with muscle, into these hubs, these camps, to remove those items that have value that they can resell at a later date. I mean, and then the rest of the items in these boxes, they're just dumped on the floor. I mean, that is disastrous, and it doesn't work. What we saw earlier in the year when the WFP, the UN's WFP agency, was distributing these food boxes, 30 items, including cleaning, cooking, hygiene supplies as well. There is no comparison.
So, John, I mean, is this the only way for people to get food in Gaza? People there are starving.
But they are. I mean, it doesn't work. I mean, and let me give you an example of why this is not working. The opening times for these hubs are being published on GHF, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's Facebook site. They are saying a hub in this district is now open at 8 o'clock. And then 7 minutes later, 10 minutes later, they then put on their Facebook page, this site is now closed. I mean, that is a recipe for chaos. And their sites are militarized. They've got watchtowers, barbed wire earth boundaries. You've got IDF troops, Israeli troops in the vicinity, their own security contractors inside the compounds as well. I mean, again, GHF, the foundation, have said multiple times, look, nobody has been injured or killed near our hubs or inside our hubs. I have been told by international aid agency officials that that is simply not true. And the MSF, Doctors Without Borders, the emergency coordinator there, and their field hospital has been dealing with a lot of the people who've been injured in these shootings that we've heard Tom talking about. This is what he had to say. People who arrive early at the hubs get shot. People who arrive late at the hubs get shot. People who arrive on time discover that there is an overflow, try to find another way in over the earth mounds, they get shot too.
So some of the items are being sold. People are dying in their dozens on a daily basis, and no other aid agencies are being allowed to distribute food other than the GHF.
It's not quite that simple. What's happening is that around 50, 60, sometimes 70 aid trucks are being allowed in. The UN and its partner agencies are supplying the aid. The Israelis decide when they can enter. They decide which route they can travel, and there's only one route. It's along the coast. Everybody can see them coming. They decide what items can go in the back of those trucks. And these convoys, if that's the right word for them, they are getting stopped. The items on some of these trucks are getting looted. In many cases, they're just being redistributed by desperate civilians. So again, this is a system that is not working. Aid officials told me that only about a third of these items are actually getting to their final destination. The Israelis repeatedly have blamed this on Hamas. The international aid agencies themselves, they say the conditions that have caused this activity, those conditions have been created by the Israelis.
John, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. Now, thousands of people have paid tribute to Liverpool and Portugal football star Diogo Jota after he was killed in a car crash in Spain. The 28-year-old was travelling to catch a ferry with his brother when the vehicle left the road and caught fire. Jota had married his long-term girlfriend last month and has 3 young children. Shocked Liverpool fans have been gathering at Anfield Stadium. Our North of England correspondent Greg Milam reports.
This is the last that Liverpool fans saw of Diogo Jota on the Anfield pitch, lifting the Premier League trophy, a celebration forever now, the most poignant of memories. Just a month later, his life ended here on a Spanish road. Police are investigating how the Lamborghini he was in with his brother came to crash and burst into flames in the early hours. It is only 10 days since Jota married his longtime partner. The couple had 3 young children. Yes to forever, his new wife had posted. And at the place where they once worshipped him, now they came to mourn. Where a few weeks ago, thousands had come to parade in celebration of that Premier League success. Now growing tributes. The club's short statement said it was devastated at what it described as an unimaginable loss. A loss felt intensely by those fans.
The way he played football with a smile on his face all the time, he was the epitome of enjoying what you do. Every time he went out on the pitch, he gave us all for us. And
things are more important than football, and this certainly is more important than football.
It's heartbreaking, and I just can't describe it. It's hurting inside. I know he's not family, but he is family.
The Deputy Prime Minister was among those who came to lay flowers.
It is absolutely heartbreaking and just shows how life events can change really quickly. And, you know, I'm absolutely devastated for his wife and his children and his family. I can't imagine what they're going through at the moment.
And from football and beyond, there have been so many tributes. Prince William, the patron of the Football Association, wrote, "As part of the footballing family, I'm deeply saddened to hear of the passing of Diogo Jota and his brother. Our thoughts are with his family, friends, and all who knew him." Jurgen Klopp, the manager who brought Jota to Liverpool, wrote that he was heartbroken. Diogo was not only a fantastic player, but also a great friend, a loving and caring husband and father. "We will miss you so much," he said. And in a statement, the current Liverpool manager, Arne Slot, said, "All I have are feelings that I know so many people will share about a person and a player we love dearly and a family we care so much about. When the time is right, we will celebrate Diogo Jota. We'll remember his goals and we'll sing his song. For the time being, we'll will remember him as a unique human being and mourn his loss. He will never be forgotten. Liverpool's players will return for pre-season training in the coming days. There are those who would like to see Jota's number 20 shirt retired as a lasting tribute to his contribution to the club. This is a football club and a city that knows how tragedies go way beyond football. However, Diogo Jota is honoured. He is gone with the gratitude of millions as a man who, in their eyes, will always be a champion. Greg Milam, Sky News, Liverpool.
Well, let's bring in our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, who joins me now live from Porto. And Rob, I mean, this is completely devastated and left the entire football community shocked.
And the shock is being profoundly felt here on the outskirts of Porto in Gondomar. This is the club where it all began for Diogo Jota. As a youngster, he came through the academy here. This is where he made his name, and into the night, so many fans, so many members of the local community are starting to arrive there, laying flowers and candles and shirts to remember the youngster who became a superstar, who went on to win every prize in English football, the League Cup, the FA Cup and the Premier League this year. And they're so proud of him and so shocked. And I've been speaking to someone who played alongside Jota as a teenager.
I was very proud of every goal he achieves, like play in the Premier League, win the Premier League, play the Champions League, win the Champions League, play for Portugal, and then win titles with Portugal. I was very proud in each one of his goals.
Miguel showed me one of his shirts from Wolves that was given to him by Jota, and there is that sense of huge shock when the news came through of the car crash in the early hours of the morning, just weeks after he led Portugal to another Nations League title, a wedding that was being celebrated as well more widely as one of the superstars. Although so often he was in the shadows of the likes of Ronaldo with Portugal and Salah at Liverpool, but he's been remembered as that humble and selfless player on and off the pitch, whose life has been so cruelly cut short, along with his brother Andre, who also used to play here.
Rob, thank you so much. Now, they're wanted by Moscow, described by Vladimir Putin as scum and traitors. But since Russia's invasion of Ukraine more than 3 years ago, Russian soldiers are fleeing the front line, some escaping through the endless forests on the border. They're being aided by a coalition of anti-war activists living in exile. The group is called addictive, which in English means go by the forest or get lost. It offers 3 options to deserters: hide within Russia, flee the country, or surrender to Ukrainian forces. It says it's helped more than 48,000 Russians avoid or escape mobilization and supported 2,000 Russian soldiers who wanted to desert. That includes 68 people who surrendered to Ukrainian forces. Just have a listen.
Yes, I filmed these videos. We inherited these dugouts from the Ukrainian forces. This is where we lived. Naturally, dugouts often get flooded. It got to the point that by morning you were knee-deep and our sleeping quarters were flooded. You adapt quickly to the living conditions. It's only now, looking back, that it hits me. If you start thinking about it, thinking and reflecting when you're there, it'll just kill you. I got to the camp about a week after signing the contract. I still believed what the recruiters had told me, that this would be a good regiment, that I'd be somewhere in the rear, that I'd probably work logistics or repair battalions, whatever was needed. But after about a week, it became clear. They were preparing us for combat. I realized in camp, it's impossible to cancel your contract. Base case scenario, you'd go to jail. If you try and run, you'd just be locked into assault squads.
That was Dmitry. He decided to desert and successfully escape the front line with the help of Idite Lesom after being sent to Ukraine to fight in the Russian army for months. Well, let's bring in Grigory Svedlin, a Russian anti-war activist and founder of Idite Lesom. Thank you very much, Grigory, for joining us here on the programme. It's not just these men who have deserted and left the country with the help of your organisation, but you're a wanted man too because of your activities.
Yeah, I have a criminal case against me, and exactly in July I will be sentenced, I think, 10 years in prison. Yeah.
Tell us about your organisation and why you started it, because you yourself haven't served in the military in Russia at all during this conflict.
No, I haven't. Well, I left the country. I left Russia, St. Petersburg, when Russia invaded Ukraine, and I wanted to do something about it, as many Russians did, but I didn't know how I can strike back. What can I do? And then in September 2022, Putin started mobilization, and it was a big shock, another one for me, because I understood that many of my friends who stayed in Russia now will be forced to join this criminal war against Ukraine, against their will, obviously, and I wanted to help them, and I wanted to help Ukraine. And I started just with a post on Facebook. I wrote that I will start a new organization, that I will use my experience in NGO. I will use it, but now for civil resistance, because I want to help people to avoid being drafted. And those who are already in Russian army, I want to help them to desert, to make Russian army weaker, to help Ukrainians. And with all my experience in charity, I never seen such a response, because really hundreds of people started to write me, and within 5 days, I wouldn't imagine if someone will tell me that within 5 days you can make such a huge organization helping people. Within 5 days we had team of volunteers, team of psychologists, team of lawyers.
You have a massive network of people helping, and you're helping many leave the country and desert.
Yeah.
Are you afraid for your life?
Yeah, well, being honest, I am, but my rage is bigger than my fear, and I think dignity is more important than safety. And yeah, many Ukrainians are not in safe for 4th year now, so it's not time to think too much about my safety.
There are many being forced into this war by Putin, and it does feel at times like a meat grinder, that people are just going and dying. But do you feel that there are also segments of society who aren't speaking up, who are against this conflict?
Yeah, obviously, because we work on private donations. We see a lot of Russians who send us different photos, different videos, how people put anti-war signs on Russian rubles, for example. We got message from elderly woman who wrote, "I'm not doing anything at all. I have daughter with 4th-stage cancer, so I'm afraid that I will be arrested and she will be out of care. So I'm not doing anything at all. I'm just going nights and putting small anti-war signs on the street." And she is writing to us that she is doing nothing. And there are many people like her, and I'm really glad that I can honor them.
We have 20 seconds left, but do you think this war will end anytime soon?
I hope so. I hope so. You never know.
Grigory, we're really grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's it from me and the team. We'll be back on Monday. The news at 10 is up next. Thank you so much for watching the programme.